It is now 11:16, so I want to welcome you to this Zoom activity where we'll be sharing with you the big projects that have been happening in the sanctuary. Well, the congregation hasn't been able to be there. So I'm glad that you have all come, and I think you'll find it interesting. What we're going to do is Bob McLean and I are going to talk about the project related to the arch over the platform, over the pulpit area in the front of the church. And Deb Devaney is going to talk about the audiovisual system that we're putting in at this point and give you an update on that. So the way that we'll do that is I'm going to be sharing a screen and we'll show you some pictures, and Bob and I will narrate that to let you know what's, first of all, what's happening with the arch. And then Deb will share with you the audiovisual activities. I think it'll probably work best if everybody mutes except for Bob and me to start out with, and then we'll share what's happening. If you do have a question, you could use the chat or raise your hand. The way you raise your hand is under reactions at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You can do so. So I'm going to do that by going under reactions and raising my hand here. And you see that it pops up then and goes to the upper left-hand corner, so we know we can talk with you. And then I'm just going to lower my hand by going to the same area again. Some of you may have a Zoom where the raising hand is in the participants, but we'll generally just try to go through the presentation first and be available to answer questions after that. And I see someone also that I want to recognize here. Chandler, it's wonderful to see you momentarily here. I hope things are going well for you.
Thanks, good to be here. Excited to hear what you guys have to say.
Okay, well, let's get right at it then. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go to a PowerPoint presentation here. So this is going to describe the arch project. Then it started in early December and went through actually about February 3rd. Actually, they might have done some cleanup on the 5th. But what I want to do is to remind you again what the sanctuary looks like. This was actually taken after the repair, but I wanted to have an image where I could show you what was happening during the time we were moving along here. And what happened is that we, as the Building and Finance Committee, noticed that there was a crack that was starting up here, and it wasn't really too big, and it wasn't getting very much larger quickly. So we were just watching it until last October. Last October, up in this area, there was a big chunk of plaster, I would guess, I don't know, 50 pounds worth or more, that fell 40 feet down to the platform. And again, fortunately, nobody was there, so that we were able to, nobody got hurt, but then we got really concerned in Building and Finance. What we did then is contact Johnston Masonry. They have an excellent reputation, they're a local group, and ask them to give an estimate on the cost to do this. And what we found out is that this is a difficult process. You know, this is 40 to 46 feet up in the air. The only way to get there is via scaffolding. So they had to come and get a scaffolding and come in and so forth. So with that, we decided, Building Finance and the council, to go ahead with that project. We didn't want plaster falling on anyone, particularly our interim minister. So what they did then is prepare the sanctuary to do what's a dirty job, and that's removing all this plaster. So here you see the way they managed the aisle, and they put some boards up so they wouldn't, and cardboard so they wouldn't damage anything. We're really concerned about the sanctuary and the dust, and particularly the organ. And you can see here where they're starting to put up some plastic. They've got some scaffolding up here, and then they're going to go further. And you see now they have plastic all the way around the area that's going to be maintained. And then they're going to put this plastic down. So I would walk in during the project when they were, first of all, doing plaster and later on doing uh, construction, and I'd rub my hand on the top of the pews and there was nothing there. So I was very pleased that the plaster dust wasn't going anyplace. So then what they did is they started removing the plaster. Here you can see the plaster that has not been removed. And here's all the area where the plaster had been moved on that arch. And you see here there's a little crack, but nothing too much to be concerned about. However, when they got over to the other side, this is the place where we saw this widening crack in the plaster. You can see that this is a significant crack. Then you see one more here. And what happened is as they were removing the plaster, this whole arch, about 8 tons of masonry, started to collapse. It went down about 1 or 2 inches in the places where 3 people were working. They very quickly wedged some lumber that happened to be on the top of the scaffold up to the arch, so they prevented it from falling on them. If they had not done that quickly, there's a good chance 8 tons of plaster would have fallen on those 3 people, and it would have then gone down to the platform and caused an immense amount of damage, in addition to some very significant loss of life, perhaps. These pictures then were taken with a drone after they had cleared off everything, and after they had started, they put they constructed here some lumber supports to keep the arch from falling while they decided what to do. Here's another picture of how damaged this arch was. Again, you see a better picture of the lumber support that are sitting on top of the scaffolding. Here's another example. One of the things that we found was that there had been some efforts to repair the arch before. So apparently all the plaster had been taken off before, and they'd done kind of a haphazard job of repairing it. Clearly not sufficient to keep it in place for the long term. Here's another example here, and this is up front in the attic, and an effort to repair, but it was mostly cosmetic as opposed to structural. So one of the ways of looking at this is the plaster was actually helping to hold up the arch. So what happened then is they discovered this, relatively early in the process, and certainly they weren't going to just put plaster over it again and go on with it. So Johnston Masonry made a presentation to the combined Building and Finance and Church Council on December 23rd. They had brought in a structural engineer and said, you got to do something with this. It's just totally unsafe. And they had come up with a plan. And Bob, in a minute, will be describing how they implemented that plan. In the meantime, we had to make a decision on December 23rd about how to go forward. So after hearing the presentation, realizing how dangerous this was, we voted, both the Building and Finance and the Church Council, to expend an additional $90,000 to prevent this from falling. And I want to explain one more thing too. Again, this is the arch that was you saw it after the plaster was off. And then here's another view. This is looking up from the platform. Again, here's the arch that was crumbling. That arch also helped hold up this whole vaulted ceiling. So if this arch would have fallen, the vaulted ceiling would have fallen. It would have destroyed the Roberts window. It would have taken out the tracery. This is where the organ pipes used to be, and it would have sent up a cloud dust that probably would have gone throughout the sanctuary. And also, I can imagine what it would have done to the organ and the workings of the organ. So in some ways, we were really lucky that we discovered this before the arch fell. So then I'm going to move on here. And Bob, why don't you tell the folks then what happened as a result of Johnston engaging in this larger project?
Okay, Well, in this shot, we're up in the attic, and it's kind of hard to tell exactly what we're seeing here. But we're looking down from the walkway to the brick arch. Just a comment on that brick arch. The structural engineer and Johnson Masonry, after analyzing that brick arch design, concluded that that brick arch was a poor design to start with. It was destined to fail from moment one. It certainly held up for quite a few years, being that the church was built in 1917, but it probably started to fail many years ago, as you can see by the repair, and it just was not the best way for them to have that major support at that juncture of the top of the sanctuary. And with 8 tons of bricks, that's a lot of weight up there. So in this photo, you can see that this is the brick arch that needed to be removed. Jenny, can you kind of point right below that?
Yeah, I will. It's just in this area down in here. Sorry.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Okay.
So this is the infamous walkway. This is an older picture, but you can see the door where you come in from the outside of the church, and you have to go all the way down this walkway in order to get to where that brick arch was. And so it's a little unsafe. You've got some poles in the center, but if you were to, there's just rafters on left and right. And if you were to, have accidentally stepped off that walkway, you would fall about 10 feet to the church ceiling and possibly fall through rafters if you didn't happen to hang onto one. So it was a little precarious, the walkway, and we'll show you what they did coming up here. This is a great shot of how it is climbing up there. That's actually me on one of the days that Denny and I went up, and you've got to kind of shimmy through that small doorway to get into this walkway. It's a gymnastic feat to get in there. Go ahead. So they put these boards in on the sides to kind of make it a little bit less scary to walk up and down. And then you can also see the wire that they put up where we're gonna show you later that they made a very ingenuitive way of getting those bricks out of there. Go ahead. So this is the scaffolding that they constructed on the outside so that they could bring bucket by bucket the bricks as they needed to dispose of them. They slid on down, and we'll show you the other side of that, I think, on the next slide. Yeah, this is where they came down. They were careful to put all the plywood down, and hopefully we don't have any ground damage there. If there is, it's minor, and there was no building damage on getting the bricks out of there. Go ahead. So this is looking down again at the arch, and this is what they had to do is they had to do a lot of construction. There's some extra 2x4s that are up there, but you can see around around those buckets, they had to create a new support system so that the barrel arch that you saw that could have possibly been, fall as a result of these bricks being tied into it, they had to have a complete structural system kind of temporarily constructed to hold everything in place as they were going to remove this critical support system. Go ahead. And there he is removing the bricks bucket by bucket. Go ahead. This is a picture that you can see. This is how far up you're on the walkway looking down, as far as how far down the arch went. So they had to, not only go out that long walkway, but they had to hoist up all those buckets up in order to get them out as they took that arch down.
Okay, so this is going to be a video then, and the narrator is going to describe the building in which he is working as Pilgrim Lutheran Church, but I hope you'll forgive him for that. I'll start the video here.
All right, we're here at Pilgrim Lutheran. Sean's gonna throw up a bucket and we're gonna see how this cable system works. Trent walks over, clips them on, clips them down there. Off they go. It's way too easy. Then they go down. Cody's grabbing them off down here. Quite the walk down here, probably about 60, 70 feet, maybe more. And then Cody grabs them from here. Out the door they go. Out here. What's up, Cody? And down. They get dumped right here down the chute. Carrie's down there right now, so we don't want to dump them, but there you go.
So you could see from that walkway that that was a lot safer, and then getting those buckets down there was a lot more efficient than it would have been trying to, hand walk all those buckets down. So in this photo, you can see the temporary support system that they've constructed after the, I believe the arch is just about gone, or is it gone completely, Denny?
There's one layer of brick left here, so I'll just point to it. So you can
Okay.
see the layer of brick that they're taking off. This will be the last one they'll take off. Of course, it'll
Okay.
all have to go up. It can't just go down here.
Yep. So that all that wood is temporary construction. And so go ahead to the next one, Denny. Looking down, then you can now see that they've gone through the brick arches being removed, so you can actually see daylight where the brick arch is almost removed. Now in this picture, we've moved quickly. They've got the new LVL beams in place that have is the new support that's replacing the old brick arch. Initially, the engineers had said that one of these 2 board wide LVLs would do the job, but as Johnston Masonry was putting the whole process together, they realized that 2 of them would be better and easier to reconstruct that beam, and you'll see how in these coming slides in better support. They had to tie these beams into the existing buttresses, and they had to kind of redo the top. The buttresses were fine all the way to the top, but they had to kind of re-engineer the way that they're attached to the tops of them, so that they're it is just a whole lot more secure and supportive than it's ever been. So now you can see that they've constructed the shell of how they're going to be able to plaster and board over the shell of what was the beam, and it'll look exactly the same as it did prior to taking out. There, the shell is all in place, and they're ready for that first coat of plaster. And here you can see that first coat of plaster in place. And now it's been refined with what looks like another coat of plaster. And now it's starting to look like it.
I can't see if there's anybody who has a question or not. So why don't you, if you do have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask it at this point if you'd like.
I don't have our video on.
Okay, and if you don't have a question, please make sure you're muted. Okay, Bob, why don't you continue on then?
Sure. So that's showing the arch is back in place, replastered, and I don't know if it's painted yet. It's hard to tell from this picture.
It is painted now. This is after the first coat. And
Yeah.
while we're here, this is one of the best pictures of the top of the scaffold. So you see, they had to do everything on top of the scaffold here. They had an area here that was a little higher, so they wouldn't, when they painted, they wouldn't have to be up on a ladder on top of the scaffold. And you can see that the plastic is still in place here, protecting the rest of the sanctuary.
Yeah. And so there there's the arch being finished. And you can, it kind of gives you a good reference as to where the lights, the cam lights are. And by the way, we had them replace all those lights while they were up there with efficient LED lights. So we should be good to go there for quite a while, not having to change those out. And this is a picture of the finished arch, and they're going to start to dismantle the scaffolding. And there it's all completely, plastic is gone. There's still some scaffolding on the right side. And this is the finished product that Denny just, yeah. Looks just like it did, if not better. And we should be good to go for many years to come.
Yeah, so we won't have to be looking for that crack and see if it's still widening, and we won't have to be ducking for plaster or arches that come falling on people's head and demolishing the sanctuary. So we figured that was a good thing. So I'm going to stop the sharing here. Excuse me, I just have to do one thing. And then to see if you have any quick questions at this point before we turn it over to Deb to talk about the audiovisual. Gary.
What happened to the bricks? Bricks are memorabilia.
Right. Johnston. They were all pretty well, kind of destroyed with that big drop that they had to take down the chute. And then the whole process of removing them, they had a little jackhammer up there. And so they, I don't think there were too many whole bricks left after that whole process.
Any other quick questions? We'll have more time for questions at the end. Okay, then Deb, could you please describe to us the audiovisual system and where we are with that?
Well, I'll just give you a brief history of how we got to this. I had talked with Don Schroffnagel, who some of you may know is the sound manager or the manager of Weber Auditorium. I've known him for years, a very, very good, well-renowned sound engineer, and asked him if he would come in and consult with us about improving our sound and looking at moving our booth from the balcony downstairs, because my experience running an auditorium at Lincoln Park and at Morgan Park, you really want to have your sound booth and your sound engineer in the same space that the people are hearing it so that you can set the sound correctly. So we started working with him in November 2019. And we were just going through that process of figuring out, where to put a booth. And then of course, COVID hit. And then we were pairing with the church down in Owatonna, and they had a lot more capability than we did. At that time, we just had the PAC camera. So we applied for a grant, and we got a computer that we could use for live streaming. And then we got a Panasonic freestanding HD camera to replace the non-HD one we had that we were borrowing from PAC. So we own that. That is the camera that we have set up in the sanctuary now. And then started looking into, how could we do our own live streaming? So that's where, Don Schroffnagel kind of started out. He's built quite a few of these booths throughout the Northland. And so he had a design of one that he had used, and we used that as our kind of blueprint, finding a place in the sanctuary where it would work. He is the sound guy. And so then I reached out to AVR and Audiovisual Resources and talked with them about getting a bid for a PTZ and kind of educating myself about those systems. And then it kind of took off from there, trying to figure out all the moving pieces, because we needed to have, we wanted to use our existing sound booth, our sound board, at least for now, and just optimize it. But so you're talking about, you have to build a booth, you have to have a finished carpenter for the booth so that it fits into the sanctuary. You have to run all the cabling, which was really intriguing. Running through the floor, we actually have a little hatch, a little booby hatch at the floor of the production booth, so you can jump down between the floor and the ceiling of below. So there's enough room to crawl, walk hunched over to put all the cabling in. We wanted to enable more microphones on stage, but with floor boxes that were low profile, so you didn't see things sticking up. We wanted to enable monitors up there so people on stage, on the chancel, can hear themselves. For those of you that have been on the chancel, you're up there singing, you can't hear anything that the minister is saying. So that was something. We also have the camera, the Panasonic camera, which we wanted to be able to use in different positions. So we also had that wired on the front in the chancel, so you could move the camera there for whatever you wanted to do. We also have it wired up in the balcony, so it could be used up there. The system itself has got 3 PTZ cameras, which means pan, tilt, zoom. They're low profile cameras, about that big. And you operate the 3 of them with kind of a joystick, so that you can, and you have a switcher, so you're actually editing while you're filming. So you can switch from camera angle to camera angle while you're actually filming, hence having the computer there. So the booth needed to accommodate the soundboard, the computer, the switcher, the operating system for the PTZ. And so that's the moving pieces that we've had here. So we had, we also have, we had to pay for Parsons to come in and do some electrical work, because we needed, we wanted an outlet on the stage, several actually. We needed outlets to be put up for the cameras, because they run off of power. And then we had to order some equipment, and we still have a little bit more to order. We probably need some match sets of microphones for the sanctuary. So as far as where we're at, all the audio equipment is in from Sweetwater. It is sitting in a pile in the back of the sanctuary, ready to be put into the booth. Jim Morse, who did the cabling, but also a real good sound engineer, has unpacked everything, and he's taking inventory of what we have. All the AV equipment is in. They put in the cameras last Tuesday, just mounted them. We really can't connect everything up until the booth is complete. The booth framework was done back in November, December. And the finished carpentry is being worked on right now. The front is completed, and Tom Brandlin was in last week doing the final sketching and marking for the side panels, and he has, I believe he has the doors done. So what they're going to do is assemble, and the other thing they have left to do is they have to stain it, because they want it to match exactly to the stain on the woodwork, so that it looks like it's been there for 100 years. So that's our plan. I couldn't find anything big enough except for a little piece of quarter round, so he's going to take a door this coming week, one of those swinging doors, and use that to match the stain. I have to pick out the countertop, which is just going to be a brown with a slate panel. We want everything to kind of just blend in. And the cabinetry style matches exactly to the style of the panels that are right behind that we're building the booth into. So it will look like it's always been there. So my understanding is by the second week in March, he will be done with the finished carpentry in the booth. For the booth, they will bring the pieces in and assemble it already pre-finished right there and fit everything. And then the countertop is the last thing that goes on. Once that is on, they'll bring in, I believe Don Schroffnagel and I will work on connecting everything up. It'll take us about 3.5 days, and then AVR will come in and connect up all the rest of the audiovisual stuff. And probably Jim Morse will have to do some connecting in there too. I believe all the electrical work is done. So we're kind of shooting second or third week in March. We might, if everything aligns, everything gets put into place, and then we have some training that we have to do. And because of COVID, we can only have like 2 to 3 people training at a time. So we have to try to figure that out. People who are willing to make a commitment to help out with either the sound or the PTZ system. So eventually our trainers will train other people, you know, that's what you do. So I think that's all I have. They did add one thing, but they're not charging us any extra money. They're going to put interior panels that look good. Before, we were just going to leave the inside of the booth. I was just going to paint the 2x4s brown so that you didn't see them. They're all below the counter. And they decided it was such a beautiful sanctuary, they didn't want anybody seeing any 2x4s in there. So they're putting paneling in that are removable pieces, and the cables will be in those panels. So we can pull them off if we have to recable anything. And we are keeping the little hatch on the floor also. We will cut the carpeting with a hole in it so that we can drop down there, and if anybody needs to add or move something. So I can show you a couple of pictures. I think, Denny, I sent them to you, and I can show you a short 4-minute video that tells you what the capability is. I'll explain the pictures when you get them. The video I don't want to talk over, but it does show you that you can use this for funerals, for weddings, for lectures, for musical performances. You can do captioning over it. You can do an overlay. You can do, while we're live streaming, you can still be showing things up on that TV screen we have in front, so you can show the lyrics of the songs while we're live streaming. We also have a feed that still will go to the parlor. So whatever we're live streaming will go directly to the parlor. I'm actually, and each camera, the 2 back cameras are 30x, and the front camera is 20x. So there's a lot of angles we can cover. Plus we also have the freestanding Panasonic on a tripod that we use up in the sanctuary, or up in the chapel right now. So
Okay.
we're going to have to probably ease into doing more, because of COVID more than anything else, ease into doing more of a hybrid service at the beginning, not a full live stream. Just being very cautious about how we would live stream singers and everything during that time. So those may be pre-recorded either in the sanctuary or even up in the chapel. I think we're going to leave that studio up there, so we have some versatility.
Yeah, what would you like to have first? Do you want us to have the PowerPoint or the video?
Why don't you just the 5 pictures and then the video
Okay.
last, please. Thank you.
Okay, I just need to switch over to your PowerPoint here.
And one of the cameras, I don't have a picture of it, will be in this picture right above where the TV screen goes. Okay. So, alrighty, first picture. This is the framed in booth. Of course, the floor is slanted, so it had to be adjusted for that. There is a little trap door in the back. You can see the cabling. There's actually a lot more cabling in there now than when this picture was taken. This was taken a month or so ago. It also follows the lines of the pews. We slapped a line to go from the doorway all the way down, so it follows the line of the pew. So one side is kind of square and the other side is a little bit off, so a little trapezoidish. It will, people have an idea that the booth is going to have plexiglass around it, and absolutely not, because when you're a sound engineer, you want to be in the same space as the people that are listening. So you need to hear what they are hearing. And so, you know, they're raised up. We will have to purchase a couple of rolling chairs here, and there'll be a counter up to about, I believe it's maybe 8 inches or 6 inches from the top of this railing. If you look at the wood behind the booth, where you see the panels and you see the top rail, that's what they're replicating. That's what it is going to look like. So in the next slide, you can see the actual front. This is the front. They don't have all the knives in this one. They have some other detail that goes right here along the edge of the big panels. That's not quite mounted in there yet. This is all white oak, so it matches the rest of it, and it will be stained to match. It's really quite beautiful. The next one shows one of the PTZ cameras. I painted the conduit, and I'm probably going to end up having to paint that lights, the plug in there too, the electric, just so it disappears a little bit more. But the camera can go up and down. It can it pan, meaning it can zoom a whole area. It can zoom in, and it can tilt up and down. So you have a lot of different angles. It's set at 8 feet, and the one in front is set at 10 feet. And the reason is because Judith and other people had remarked, when we had the camera up in the balcony looking down, it always kind of gave you this bird's eye view of the church service, like you're kind of far removed. And this will give you a different angle on that. This will be much more personal, much more intimate. It will be more on the angle of what you would be seeing if you were sitting in the sanctuary. So in the next slide, this is one of the boxes in the front. You can see they're all low profile. Before we had some things that stuck up and we had cables and wires. And then the next one shows what's in there. They just flip up, and they're very heavy duty. So you can roll a piano over them. It's not going to do anything. So we've got 6 mics capabilities. We have a monitor mic, and then 2 cables. The red is the for the monitor, and the other 2 are for if you want to plug in a the other Panasonic camera in that area. So you could, you know, so we have some versatility there. So that's all I have to show on the slideshow. The video, I had Britta from AVR, I asked her if she would just make a short video that just showed what the possibilities were of a PTZ system. I don't have my note here right now, but I had done a price comparison of what it would cost to, I guess I do, live stream if you were hiring somebody. And this is where they've hired themselves out. They usually charge, it's about $250 per camera. So we have 3 cameras. You have setup and delivery, another $40, $50. You're paying $60 for a filming tech. And that's a real low end live streaming system. And we have the 3 cameras. So, so this will give you an idea of what the capabilities are.
I'm being followed by the rain clouds. My clothes are soaking up the pain that keeps pouring down. Too much more and I may drown.
I'm being followed by the night sky. It's all away by sight. It seems I have lost my way. Need someone to be my guide.
Listen to my voice.
So we will rejoice at a time like this the way that Christians do, with tears and also with gladness.
Who could take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile? Olivia, that's who. It was our privilege to have her in our lives since the day she was born.
I'm being fronted by the people who look at me like I'm a star upon their perfect skin. Perfect in all
great. One of the things that Anita brought up and we've been thinking about is how we would market this. Our church sanctuary is about the same seating capacity as Weber. And Don has brought this up, Don Schraufnagel has brought this up to me quite a few times. He says there's quite a market for people looking for something that is about that size for all kinds of things, you know, lectures, weddings, funerals, musical performances. So that's right now I'm really focused on just getting this done. But I did talk to my daughter, who started a company not too long ago, and she strongly suggested I go to the Small Business Development Center in West Duluth, because they offer, I think, 10 free sessions of trying to market your product. And so I think that that's something that we're going to look at. It's not something we want somebody to have a full-time job doing, but working with Mary to market the space and have people come in, and we would have people that are trained and they would hire them, or they could bring in their own trained person if we knew that they were okay on the system. So beyond just connecting our congregation to not just Sunday services, but other activities that we could be doing in the sanctuary, and other places, because we've got the freestanding camera. So I'm trying to be transformative in my thinking on this Transformation Sunday, thinking that we have all kinds of possibilities here. And I've always tried to be an agent of change. And I think that this is a wonderful time for us to be moving into this, and the possibilities are endless. So.
Well, any of you have questions for Deb? Steve?
Are we adding any additional speakers besides the two that are in the front?
At this time, no, I don't think so. Don is a really good sound engineer, and he's going to optimize our system. We probably are going to add some more microphones. The speakers are actually pretty adequate for that space. Just a little side note, when Jim Morse took them down, he noted that the shelves that they were on were definitely not adequate. So Steve, my husband, is building us some new shelves that are big enough so we don't have to worry about them falling off the wall and cabling them onto the bolts. But the speakers, he believes the speakers are really pretty good. We just need to optimize more of the microphones. So.
For those of us who have hearing issues, and I'm reminded by Bob, who's underneath me here, that a lot of times I have a hard time hearing what's coming out of those speakers.
Right. Well, we do have the sound assist system. And I think we have 8 of those now. I might be wrong, but I think because we bought a couple more, that is tied into the soundboard, which again, Don is going to optimize what we have. So we're hoping that will really help with the sound assist option. So that's originally why in November 2019, people were saying they're having trouble hearing, and it's not always the speakers. The space itself has wonderful acoustics. So people with hearing issues, we can only correct so much. You can't really set the sound for the people who have hearing issues. You have to set the sound for people who don't have hearing issues, and then have ways to help them adapt to that, which is our hearing assist system. So, but better microphones will help. Bob?
Let me comment. I have really significant hearing problems, and I use those sound assist, the hearing assist devices. And without them, I would not come, because otherwise I can't hear what's going on. But they're really quite good, and they work very well.
Mm-hmm.
Good to hear that. Mary Olin, you've been having your hand up.
I'm just blown out of the water by everything that you folks have accomplished with these two projects. And I so appreciate all the details and what's happened. I just love it. I also, though, am wondering and would love to know what the total cost of each of the two projects is and how did we finance it? I didn't think we had much money, and I know you're all being prudent, but where did we get the money to do this?
I'm going to start to respond to that in a couple of ways. One is, first of all, you thanked people, and I really want to thank Deb for all the work that she's done. This has been a great deal of work for her. And on the arch project, Bob and I got a chance to climb around in the attic a little bit and appreciate the work. The person who did most of that was Mary Saposi. She front-ended that and was on top of everything throughout. And Johnston Masonry were wonderful people to work with. I'll try to respond to the arch project, and then maybe Deb and Bob add to that if you hear anything that I miss. And then maybe Deb can talk to the monetary part, financial part of the AV system. So the total cost for the arch is going to be the initial $45,000, which it was going to cost for the plaster, an additional $90,000 for the arch. So a total of $135,000. That's a lot of money. The $45,000 we probably could just about cover out of our capital fund. Every year we have about $45,000 that we expend in capital expenses. We have been replacing windows with part of that in the past, and we've done the most important windows. This year, obviously, we have a project that we have to do for $45,000. The other $90,000, quite honestly, it's paid. But what we had to do is take money out of the legacy funds. We're fortunate that we had to take that out at a time when those legacy funds were at a maximum for our, the last 2 decades, roughly. The market had been up, so we were able to write checks for those amounts, but and it diminished what we will have, but we're still, I believe, over $1 million in our legacy funds. So we still will be able to draw down around 40,000 a year from those. Bob, anything to add to that? You're muted.
Sure. As Denny says, the market has been quite strong this year, and we've gained, despite the peculiar year we've been living in, we've actually gained quite a bit in the market. So we're getting some money there by not having our normal Sunday services in the sanctuary. We are spending less than we would have otherwise. So some of the money is coming from there. We pretty much covered actually that initial 45 from money that's not being spent that we would have otherwise spent if we had been meeting regularly every Sunday in the sanctuary.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big hit, but we're mostly are going to come out pretty close to okay, I think, by the end of the year, by the end of the fiscal year.
Thanks. Bob McLean, anything further on that?
I just wanted to add that, the cost could have been so much more significant if we would not have discovered all of these structural issues. If that whole ceiling would have collapsed, and nobody got hurt, thankfully, the timing with this COVID times and having an empty sanctuary, we were very blessed to have this opportunity to fix what could have been a catastrophic situation. So structurally, I feel pretty good that that we got this all done during this time and during the time that markets are riding high, so that we didn't get stung too bad with our resources financially. We were in a good position to be able to do this at this time. It was everything, the stars had aligned here for us, I think.
Tris, did you have a question about finance or?
Yeah, just to add to that, thank you. I think you answered most of my questions, but I wondered about insurance for what was happening there.
We filed a claim, insurance claim, and the claim was denied.
It's hard to claim that a 100-year-old arch is an accident.
Oh.
Deb, could you talk a little bit about the financing of the cost and the financing for the
Yes.
AV system?
Yep, and we had put this, let me see, this was October 21st of last year when, before the arch thing happened, that we had put together the whole project. And so Parsons Electric, the frame carpentry, finish carpentry, AVR video equipment, low voltage wiring, the consulting from Don Schraffnagel and Sweetwater Music, and the other wiring from ESC came to $42,777.55. And when we had talked with Mary and Bob about this back in October, the savings realized by not I believe we went from October or November, actually November to springtime, when we thought maybe we would be back in church and stuff, that the children and family, salaries of the children and family, the savings from that, the organist, the choir director, daycare, children's music, bell choir, all of those salaries are no longer being paid. So that was the initial idea, that would more than cover what we had estimated for this. So, and a lot of it was, most of these were half down immediately. So I'm not sure exactly if there's any outstanding bills still on this or not. I think the finished carpentry booth and AVR, and I think Don Schraffnagel still has a little consulting fees still. But I think it's at least 3/4 paid for at this point.
Steve.
In total, how many cameras are there, and will there be a second monitor on the left side of the sanctuary? Because it's a little more difficult to see the monitor on the right side of the sanctuary if you're sitting on the left.
Mm-hmm. At this time, we have 3 cameras. We actually have 4 cameras, but 3 PTZ cameras, 2 in each back corner of the sanctuary, and 1 that will be a little bit above the television on that side. And at this time, we did not plan on putting in another TV screen. That wasn't a part of the plan, and I don't think anybody had really talked about a need for that yet, but that's something we have. The system is built to expand. We have a lot more capability than we are using right now when we did the cabling, just for that reason, so that we could build on it if we needed to. So that's something that at some point could be added if it was needed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Gary.
Can I just say wow? Wow to you and Bob and Deb. And I agree with Mary Olin. I'm just blown away. And thank you all so much for providing this information. This is a great Salter Hall coffee hour, Denny. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks to all of you for getting together. It's wonderful to be able to look across and see 25 people that I miss a great deal when we can't be in the sanctuary in person. And it's great to be able to see you today. So thank you for joining us. We'll stay. I can stay around a little bit longer. If anybody wants to chat about anything else that they didn't want to ask in the larger group or whatever, feel free to stay. Otherwise, thank you all for being here. And thanks again to Deb and Mary in particular for all the work that they've done. So Good to see you all. Take care.
Yes, good to
Thank
see
you,
you.
Denny. Appreciate all your work.
Patrick, thank you as well.
Yes, thank you
Sorry.
for recording this.
Yeah.
Denny, I wanted
Absolutely.
to say I had a lot of fun because I'm there 2 to 3 times a week at least, in and out. And I like talking to worker guys. So I had a lot of fun when those guys were on their lunch hour. I would go down there and say, okay, what'd you do today? And they're telling me all about coming up with a zip line and all this, you know, the things and the materials that they were using, the manufactured beam and all that stuff. It was pretty intriguing stuff. They, you know, it was a lot of fun to talk with them. They really know their stuff. And those poor guys, I would see them up there, you know, hauling, you know, 2 of them standing up on the scaffolding in the very, very top, throwing it down into the buckets for hours on end, for days, you know. It's like, whoa, what a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge project. Thank you for sharing that, because I didn't talk to them much on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, they were very willing. They're real proud of their work. And, you know, I wish I had my camera, my phone one day, because I was watching those younger guys, instead of going up the stairway that went up on the right side, they were billy goating up the scaffolding, just leaping up to get up to the top. And it was like, woo, it was amazing.
Thank you.
They had actually built themselves a stairway inside the scaffolding.
Yeah, and they were using, you know, some of them were using that, but some of them, I don't know if they were just showing off or if they had too much energy or whatever, but they were just billy goating up the scaffolding instead of using the stairway. And it was, yeah, it was an amazing job. I'm very impressed with their work.
So I have a question for Deb and Patrick regarding the new capabilities. Once the booth and the sound and the cameras are all in place, will we, if we're still doing a virtual service at that point, will we try to shift over to the sanctuary?
Yes.
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
Cool.
We will have to, as I said, kind of do a hybrid kind of a service for a while. I'm just not real comfortable with people coming and singing in the sanctuary while people are speaking. So I think, and we can decide how we would do that. That's kind of some of the conversations now that we're having. How can we do that safely? And at this point, we're thinking we're going to keep everything up in the chapel, which we kind of have a booth there with a shield up between the filming area and the other area. And we kind of have a nice protocol up there. So if we need a smaller space to do things, we could do that. We could even record the music up there or some of it up there, or we could do, you know, I'm just thinking it would be smart for us to keep both spaces until we really get good at this.
Okay.
Say, Deb,
Yeah.
something for you to think about. I've watched a couple of live streaming events from Peace Church, and they've erected large plexiglass spaces in front of the people doing the singing as a way to try and provide some protection in the COVID time.
Yeah, I got a bit. I actually talked to Britta from AVR, who is the person in charge of our whole PTZ system, and she gave me a local company that does that, because I've been looking into those. They're still pretty expensive. I mean, you could make your homemade ones, but they really aren't very good looking with the wood frame around them and all that kind of stuff. There are some larger plexiglass ones. Basically, they're a drum shield that people use, or a piano shield for recording. And they're all plexiglass with a short plexiglass stand. So that's something to think about. We could probably get a couple 3-sided shields if we wanted to have 2 singers. So that's a possibility. Or maybe even, I don't know. We're still working out that. They're pretty pricey. They're about $400 or $500 for one shield for one person. And we need a couple, so that's something we're thinking about.
Mary, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yes, I can't thank you all enough for this wonderful presentation today. The communication was just wonderful, and I'm just so grateful to be so wonderfully filled in. And I'm just so impressed with all the work that our volunteers and staff and everyone connected with Pilgrim has done on this. It just shows wonderful creativity and hard work, and I'm just so grateful for what everyone did, and I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you. Certainly
Thanks, Mary.
appreciate that. And again, Deb and on the AV has been put in two or three times a week. You've been over at Pilgrim and all these contacts and so forth. And Patrick, I appreciate you setting up this Zoom meeting and all the others as well. So thank you for doing that. And Bob continuing working as treasurer during this time. So there's a lot of people who are working to keep things going.